All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on university applications. With the ongoing COVID-19 situations, we know students globally have seen an impact on education and future plans. So in response to this, the Aga Khan Education Board for the UAE is working to provide support and guidance to you and your families. So with these webinars, we're aiming to provide on an ongoing basis to respond to your questions and share information as it becomes available to us. So today's session is the first in the special AKEB UAE series, and we will be focusing on the impact COVID-19 may have for seniors in high school in terms of final exams, standardized tests, and university applications. Senior Educationist and Chief Execution Officer of Altman Group, Sajid Ashraf, will share an overview today, a presentation followed by time for Q&A. Sajida Appa is an international educational strategist with an EDM in strategy and policy from the Harvard Graduate School of Education and an MBA from Emory University. She has been helping global youth navigate the university application process for about 15 years now, and through her work, she is in direct contact with leading universities around the world. So before we get started, we just want to remind you a couple of key points. Please ask lots and lots of questions. At any point, please send in your questions during the webinar using the Zoom chat via Sahil, who will be moderating the Q&A session after the presentation. And if anyone wishes to ask questions in any other language, such as Arabic, Urdu, or Gujarati, just let Sahil know again via the Zoom chat, and we would be happy to help you with that. So usually I would say I would like to now hand over the floor to Sajida, but over here, let me hand over the screen to her to kick off today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Samia, and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. So here is basically what we're going to try to cover today. We're going to look at the current situation, and we're going to see what some of the universities around the world are saying in response to what's happening, and then maybe some tips and some resources for you in terms of what you should be thinking about and how you should be moving forward. So the idea for today is to present with you with as much information as we've been able to find. The important thing to remember is that there's not a lot of information that's out there. So what we're hoping to do is give you information and also help understand better your questions so that we can continue to go and source more information. As you know, the situation is very fluid, and so we're trying to grapple with that as well as get information as it comes and share it with you. But this is credible information that we've now gotten directly from the sources. So just with that, keep that in mind, that we may not have all the answers, but we'll definitely work hard to get the answers for you as we keep going through with this webinar and future webinars as well. So our three objectives for today are to basically look at what's happening with your high school examinations and the standardized tests around the world. We also want to look at what the higher education institutions are saying in terms of how they're going to help with applications and admissions for the fall of 2020. And then what you should be thinking about as a student, what you can do to minimize the effects of COVID-19 on your plans for higher education and pursuing university. Just want to double check. Can everybody hear me? Can you let Sahil know that you can hear us? Sal, we're good to go? Okay, great. So what is the current situation when it comes to high school certifications, other assessments, and tests around the globe? So we try to go and look across the world at different high school certifications and final exams, and basically looking at different curriculums and different programs that are being offered. Now, if we've missed something, please let us know, and we'll look to make sure it's included in the next webinar that we do for you, as well as the updated PowerPoint. But we try to gather as much information as we can. So I'm going to go through the various certifications that we've been able to speak with or connect with in terms of getting some information. So the IB, the International Baccalaureate Program, which, as you know, has a global footprint. It's offered all over the world. And as per the latest information, the submissions and final exams have been canceled. and their predicted grades are going to be used for certification for just this year. So basically whatever your predicted grade is what's going to be used going forward in terms of your final marks for IB, but also then what the universities will look at in terms of your acceptance and your applications. So if there is a challenge in terms of where your predicted grade is and what you think you could have achieved, you need to talk to your school, okay, and see what they'll do in terms of writing you additional letters of support or so forth, talking about how you could have done better, if that's an issue for you. If it's not an issue for you, then you're good to go, all right? With the advanced placement programs, which is a US curriculum available, they're still planning to administer their exams online, and they're not going to have any multiple choice, but they're still going to have the 45-minute examinations, and they're planning to have 2 dates for each test, but allowing for cancellation if you can't make it. But the important thing to know here is that they're going to do the test online. So their perspective is that you should be able to access it from wherever you are. So if this is something that affects you, you need to keep a very close eye on what they're saying and make sure that you're connecting with your school to make sure that you're signed up for those tests, because this is going to be very critical. And make sure that you also use the online resources that the College Board has set up for preparation of online testing, because this is something that's a bit different, and they're also adjusting the test. So it's not quite the way that you might have been used to it. So you need to make sure that you've adjusted for it, all right? The India system, the CBSE, ICSE, and the ISC, this is used all over India, the GCC, wherever there are India's schools and curriculums available. And they have basically, as of yesterday, we have heard that they have decided to actually cancel the exams. So this PowerPoint is even slightly updated because I got that update literally 5 minutes ago. And they have decided to cancel the exam, and they're going to give updates again within 2 weeks. So in the next iteration of this PowerPoint, we will hopefully have a further update as to what they're saying. But for now, as of actually yesterday, April the 1st or 2nd, they have decided to cancel the exam. So this is important. We would, however, recommend in this case that you do still continue to prepare for these exams, just because they might try to do an interim test or something. We just don't know at this point, but stay prepared in case there's something you have to do or something that you have to provide in terms of, sort of showing that you've done the work or that you've studied. And make sure you also are in touch very directly with the universities that you're applying to, because universities are also watching what's happening with the different examinations, and they're also adjusting their requirements based on that. So if there's a specific university or several universities that you're looking at, make sure that you're in touch with them saying, we've heard this is the latest update. What are you going to be looking at? What are you going to be needing from us in order for us to get acceptance into your programs? Okay, Pakistan has the HSSC and also the SSCs. And for now, what we've heard from them is that the exams are postponed. They were supposed to give an update by the end of March. Nothing further has been provided. So we'll continue to watch this and hopefully have an update again shortly. Again, make sure that you're staying to prepare for your exams, continue to study, continue to do your work, and then make sure that you're in touch with universities you're interested in, so that, again, if there's anything that they're going to be doing to make an exception, you can take advantage of that, all right? Then we have the GCE, the A-level, O-level system from the UK, which is, again, offered in British curriculum schools around the world. And basically, they have said they're going to cancel the exams, and they're predicting the grades based on prior performance. So they're doing something similar to the IB. And they're also currently saying that they're going to give you the option to take the test in the future. But this is still up in the air a bit as of a conversation that we had with them yesterday. So just keep watching this. Make sure you're studying for your tests, okay? Because they will look at taking, the people that give you conditional offers will potentially ask you to take the test later. So it's important that you stay prepared in case you're required to take the test later. So don't just think that you can get away with not studying, because you might need to take the test to guarantee your acceptance, even though you might have a conditional acceptance right now. The Canadian Canadian schools, all states, all the provinces except Quebec, Prince Edward Island, Saskatchewan, BC, and New Brunswick have actually canceled their exams, and they're going to base the grades on prior assessments and total credits. BC has postponed April exams, but we're still waiting for actual confirmation from all the other provinces. And we just have to keep checking with them in terms of what they're doing because in Canada it's by province, so each province makes their own rules. So we actually have to check with each province, and their websites are still not at 100% updated. So this is one that we'll continue to get back to you on as well. Okay, then Australia, they have the SSCE, and basically this also is state driven. And so here you can look across if there's a particular state that impacts you and see what they've decided. So this PowerPoint will be posted on the website so you can have a look at it. But basically each state is kind of making their own rules as they go along. Because not each state is shut down. Like we are all doing online schooling here in the GCC, but this isn't the case in Australia. So some states are still proceeding as normal. Others are still waiting to decide what they're going to do. So Australia, if that's a particular area of interest for you and there's a specific question, let us know and we'll try to source specific information for you. Okay, now we also wanted to talk to you a little bit about the standardized tests. So what's happening with the SATs, which as you know are needed when you're applying to university in the US and some universities in Canada, is that all of the March May-Kick exams were actually canceled. The May exams have also been canceled. Other days are ongoing as scheduled, but it's going to also depend on what happens in the US in terms of the availability of the SAT people, the actual organization to run the tests. So for now, we just have to keep a close watch on them. If you've taken your SAT and your score is okay, then sit tight and you're okay. If you need to take it again or take it for the first time, then very likely it's going to be sometime after June that you're going to have the chance to take it. So you need to let the university that you're applying to know that this is the case so that they give you an alternative option. Okay, so this is really critical because unfortunately it doesn't look like there's going to be any new dates until June. The ACT, which is also a standardized test that's used for application to universities in the US, primarily in the US. So the April 4th exams have been postponed to June 13th, so that's good. You have more time to study. And then the second test has been scheduled for July 18th. Now, if you haven't been able to register for either of these, then you need to, again, follow up with universities and let them know that this is the case. Also, if you want to reschedule your exam to June, then you have to immediately contact them at act.org and let them know this is what you need to do, and then make sure that you're in that pool because that pool is going to get full very, very quickly. So if this is something that you need, you must immediately reach out to them and let them know that this is what's happening with you and you need a different date or you need to reschedule. Okay. Now, in terms of the TOEFL, again, this is the test for those who, TOEFL and IELTS are tests for those who, for whom English is a second language. So TOEFL is providing online tests, okay, at selected locations. So you have to reach out and see if it's accessible for you, if there's a date available, and also if it's something that, can be done post our shutdown right now, which is across the UAE and many countries in the GCC. So you have to connect locally with the TOEFL centers and see what's happening. The test will be available online, and right now what's happening with TOEFL is they're talking about how people can take it from home as opposed to going to a center. So they're still trying to figure that out, and maybe by the next time we have a webinar, we'll have further updates. But in the meanwhile, if you have any concerns, you should definitely reach out to them ASAP and let them know, excuse me, that you need something, you need help. The centers here are closed. What can you do to make sure that you get the test, okay? Because you need it for your university applications. So with the IELTS, they have suspended exams across every country pretty much until April 30th, okay? There are very few exceptions because more and more countries now are declaring this lockdown. So you really have to be careful about assuming that it's going to be available. And you have to go and check their website to see what they're doing because they are not offering online yet. though the talk around IELTS is also that they're trying to find an online solution, in which case it might be easily accessible. So just keep an eye out there. We'll continue to update you as we get more information, but for now, there's actually no information coming from them. For ACA, the exams have been canceled and the grades are being predicted on prior performance. There will be an option to take the test in the future, just like the O-levels, A-levels. And remember, if you get a conditional offer, this is for people who are writing the ACAs, take the offer, apply for it, take it, and then they'll ask you to take the test later date. So make sure you keep studying and keep focused, because you will still have to take the test. It'll just be delayed slightly. All right, please make sure you're sending your questions into Sahil via chat as we go through, and we'll do some Q&A at the end. Okay, just continuing while I take a sip of water. Okay, so the GMAT, which is for grad students who are applying primarily to business school programs. So right now, they are allowing for at-home testing. And they are also providing refunds for those that had booked, going into the centers and doing the tests. So if you have, if you're in this situation, you need to reach out to the GMAT folks directly and let them know that, you'd either like the online test at home option, or you would like to reschedule to a later date if there's no urgency for you. Keep preparing for the tests, get rescheduled if you have time, but if you don't, they are offering online tests to people in the GCC and most countries around the world, so you should be able to take advantage of that. The GRE, which is another graduate school exam for many programs, including education, including liberal arts, et cetera, et cetera. So they are providing the general test via at-home testing online. The subject tests for April 4th have been postponed to July, and they're allowing you to reschedule free of charge. So it's actually, they're being very accommodating. And hopefully, if you have to do a subject test and it's being rescheduled to July, the grad school programs are being much more accommodating and will allow you to submit your scores a little later. So you should be okay. Again, just continue to stay in touch with them, let them know what your situation is, let them know what you need, and they're being quite responsive and working with you. The LSAT, which is the exam for people applying to law school in North America, it has been postponed for April 25th. We don't know exactly when it's going to be rescheduled. Right now we're hearing June, but that will also still to be updated and to be determined. And they are allowing for rescheduling free of charge. So again here, if you're in this position when you're writing the LSAT, please reach out to them directly, let them know you need to be rescheduled, and they'll do it for you for free. They're again being super accommodating. Okay, so what are we thinking in terms of timeline and prospects of change? So within the month, so we're looking now at April, there's still a lot of concerns around COVID-19, so the chances of change are quite slim. Within 3 months, we're saying that the chances for change are quite moderate, okay? And for us in the GCC, Australia, and maybe Canada, and then chances for change are lower in the US and the UK and the EU, just because of what's happening right now with CV-19. Within 6 months, inshallah, we're very hopeful that things will be back to normal. The reason we're sharing this with you is so that you know how you need to be preparing over the next month, 3 months, and 6 months. Don't sit back and think that things won't get back to normal, because inshallah, they will get back to normal. But what it means is you have to prepare well and make sure you're taking advantage of all of the opportunities that the different certification boards, as well as standardized testing organizations, are providing to you. Make sure that you're staying in communication with them so that you know what you need to be doing, and make sure you're staying in touch with the university so you also know what you need to get done to get acceptance in for the fall. All right. Now, we also went ahead and we tried to get information about how the universities are responding to COVID-19. And personally, I spoke to universities in the UK, in Canada, and the US, as well as universities here in the UAE, about what they're doing. Their biggest challenge is they don't have the full answers, okay? So, excuse me, what they have given us is what they're currently thinking, but this is still fluid. It will change as situations evolve, okay? So we'll continue to update you as we get more information, but we wanted to share with you what we've heard from them so far, okay? So for the universities in the USA, what they're telling us is that most admissions decisions have already been made, okay? However, if people have a conditional acceptance, then you need to reach out to them and ask them what they're going to do, what more they need to look at to change your conditional to a final acceptance, okay? And also they're being a little bit more flexible in terms of the deposit this year, just because of the situation. They're also being a little bit more flexible in terms of the final documentation, for example, around your SAT scores or your transcripts, just because they know that everything's in flux. But if you've applied to university in the US and you have a conditional acceptance, you should very quickly reach out to them and ask them what more they need from you, and make sure that you are then in touch with your school to find out what the school can give to you so that you can change your conditional to final acceptance. Okay, in terms of scholarships and funding, they are not sure yet how they're going to handle that, because there's so much documentation that they usually need around the financing that's all on hold given current situation. So again, if that's a situation for you, then you need to reach out to them and let them know that you are still very interested in getting scholarships or financing from them, and what more do they need from you. And when we get more information, we'll definitely update you as well in the next presentation. In terms of their plans for the fall, most are very, very hopeful that you'll be able to be face-to-face, but they've also said that since a lot of them have already moved to online coursework, they're also preparing for that situation to be a backup for the fall. So there may be online coursework, they might do orientation and virtual tours online as well, to make sure that you guys get the full experience, and you get started on time, even if the COVID-19 situation allows for not face-to-face or in-person attendance. All right. In terms of the visa and sponsorship, they're saying that usually they don't start applying until usually late spring, early summer. So they're hoping that by that point things will be normalized and it'll be the normal visa process. They understand that it might take longer, but until travel bans and so forth are lifted, they feel like there's really nothing more that they can say at this point. Okay, Canada. So Canada are currently looking at the acceptances, because their acceptances are usually provided between April and June. So they're also being very flexible, and they're looking at case-by-case situations, and they're looking also at flexibility around final documentation. So if you've applied to universities in Canada, you should reach out to them, because we spoke with 3 universities in Canada, and they all have a different approach to how they're doing this. Some are basically looking at a conditional or predicted grades and saying that's what they're going with. Others are saying they're still going to require an entrance test specific to that university. So you need to reach out to university specifically and ask them what they want you to do. Again, around financing, they're saying something quite similar. They're being very cautious about saying yes, because they don't know what's going to happen with visa processes, but also documentation from the student family. So they're not making any particular commitments right now. And then here also they're looking at potentially online. All Canadian universities have also started to do everything online for this semester. So they're saying they're also preparing to be ready in case that is what they have to do in the fall. And then again, for visas, they're saying that because travel bans are currently being enforced, they're not pursuing anything, but again, they don't usually start to apply for visas for students or to support visa application until the spring, early summer. So they're hoping that things will be back to normal at that point. All right, in the UK, I'm going to focus on the international students column that we have here. So they're doing case by case. They've been very clear that because they have a bit more of a restricted sort of framework in the UK because of their government funding for universities, they're doing case by case, and they're very open to doing conditional offers of admission. And we spoke with actually about 4 universities in the UK, and they've all sort of said the same thing. So they're being quite flexible there. They're saying that potentially there might be an increase for fees. They don't know this as yet because they're waiting to see what the government money is that comes to them, because most of them are funded by the government as well. But they're saying that they may have to increase the fees, and they'll know this, they're saying, by June. So that's when we'll have a further update around fees. For incoming cohorts, they do have a recruitment cap, but however, it allows for more flexibility for international students. So there is actually more opportunities for international students in the UK schools, but all applications must go through UCAS. and UCAS is a little bit backed up right now, so you have to just be patient with them. Again, for visas, because of the travel bans, they're not looking at this right now, but they're also hopeful that, you know, by the time the fall rolls around, they're able to be back to normal, which means that they can apply for, you can apply for visas come the summer. All right, in the EU, there's actually no updates. The Europe is pretty much shut down, and we haven't been able to get any specific updates on universities there. But if you have applied to a university specifically in the EU, please make sure you reach out to them directly, because they are responding directly to students on a case-by-case basis. So again, if you've applied to them, reach out to them, ask them specifically what they're doing. At this point, they've told us they have no updates, but that might change on a student basis. In terms of the GCC, they're being super flexible. What we've heard across the GCC is that they're allowing for students here to apply with whatever information they have, and they will continue to accept basically whatever you can provide. So they're within each country in the GCC, you're going to have a lot of flexibility. If you want to travel across the GCC, is when you'll have to watch out for the travel bans. So just pay attention to what happens there, but you can apply across the GCC, and they're actually being super flexible across the board. Here in the UAE, what we're hearing is that they're implementing rolling deadlines. So as soon as you get information or you have documentation, you can submit it, and they're going to be accepting students all the way until September. So they're actually being super flexible here in the UAE, and they're also looking at case by case. So if there's a situation where you don't have any documentation or you don't have any grades, they will look at other supporting information from your school, from even your grade 11 year, for example, to help you get admission. So they're being super flexible here. And they're also looking at online online coursework, as well as online orientation, because they're also concerned about the lockdown continuing. So they're saying watch out for what's happening in the country, but acceptance will be on a rolling basis, and definitely very flexible and case by case. So the universities here are being very accommodating. Okay, Australia, most operations in universities are ongoing. They haven't really stopped, as we've seen here, and most students are actually still going to university face-to-face, but what they're saying is they're looking at potential for online coursework come the fall, depending on what happens, again, in Australia. And they are not having any external events, so no visits and so forth, and that's obvious given the travel ban. But keep a watch out in case the situation in Australia changes, in which case they will, of course, adjust accordingly. All right, India, they have no update as of now. The exams that were supposed to take place in May or June, currently they still have them scheduled, but in April of this year, I'm sure they're going to modify that, since the situation in India has also escalated. Excuse me. So, okay, and then they're looking also at potential for online coursework, depending on the situation in the next 6 months. So again, this month, April, we should see some updates, and then we'll let you know what's going to be happening in India. But at this point, there's no information that they've released. I think they're just still grappling with the massive numbers that they have to deal with in India. Pakistan also, no updates as of now. We were supposed to get an update as of March 31st, but we haven't received any information, and we'll continue to look for this. And the HEC, the Higher Education Commission in Pakistan, is saying that maybe they'll look at online coursework in the fall, but to be determined, still no current confirmation, because their challenge is they don't have the technology, the infrastructure to support that. So they're going to let us know in the next month or so what their strategy is. Okay, so that's basically what we're hearing from the universities, and we'll continue to update this information and continue to reach out to universities and get information. But I urge you again that if you have applied to a specific university, reach out to them directly and get them to let you know what they're thinking. So here are some things that you as seniors should be thinking about and planning for the next couple of months as you prepare for your fall admissions, all right? So stay in touch with the universities. Make sure you attend their virtual tours and the webinars and the orientations, because many of them are now offering those online. And you want to make sure that they see that you're interested and that you're committed. So stay in touch and make sure you attend anything that they're offering, even though it may be challenging to do so. Make sure that you're staying in touch with their faculty and their career services and other students that you might have connected with at that university, so that, again, they know that you're interested and that you're committed to coming there. 100%, you must stay in touch very closely, virtually, of course, with the admissions teams at the universities where you've applied to. Let them know you're still interested, let them know of your situation and your circumstances, let them know of your challenges so that they can come up with creative solutions that actually make it work for you. If there's countries where you're specifically interested in going to university, make sure you're staying abreast of all the latest news, but don't panic, okay? You know, this will pass, things will go back to normal, but it's always good to stay informed and make sure that whatever information you're gathering or thinking about or using is from credible sources. That's really important. There's lots of stuff floating out there, even about high school and universities and exams. Make sure you're always getting it from a credible source, a source that's reliable and that is validated. Okay? Continue to prepare for your exams. Make sure you're going to your class online, do all of your assignments, stay on top of things, and make sure that all your documents, as much as possible, are ready, because you never know when situation will change, and then you'll be asked for the stuff, and you don't want to be at that last minute preparing for the documentation. Make sure that you sign up for the school newsletters for universities that you're applying to, okay? They might in them tell you about different updates to the university in terms of what's actually happening for students, and it's good for you to know in case that makes you change your decision about going to that university. That's your decision to make, that's your choice. So make sure you're also up to date with what they're actually doing so you can make a decision that suits you best. And then, of course, stay safe and healthy, and remember to practice social and physical distancing. This is really important. A lot of young people around the world are ignoring this, and it's actually very critical. So we just wanted to remind you of that as well. So some resources that you should be able to access and hopefully will help you stay informed. I know you can't take all of this down here, but we're going to share the PowerPoint on the website, so you'll be able to go back and access it here. But these are the credible sources of information. So these are the sources that we want you to look at if you have questions. And of course, you can always ask us, because we're not only looking at these sources, but we're also talking to the universities directly. So we can hopefully give you some other insights as well. So that is it for our presentation. And now I hope that we have some questions. Sahil?
We have lots of questions coming in, actually. So thank you, participants, for sending in questions through the registration form and through the chat today. If we can start off with the question coming in from Aman Vasani, and this is a frequently asked question. Is there a possibility that your IGCSEs or other board exams will take place even though they are cancelled right now?
So that's a really, really good question. And as of, like I said, day before yesterday, they have officially said they're canceled. However, we would urge you to continue studying, because we don't know if they're going to change their minds. They might not have the exams, but they might have some kind of test. So I would urge you to still stay studying and stay focused. And as of now, it's canceled, but they might issue a requirement for a specific test, in which case you want to be prepared.
Okay. So similar questions coming in from Uzair and Ishan Rayani. How will the IB grading system work? Will our coursework affect the overall achieved grade?
Right. So what the IB folks are doing is that there was a predicted grade that was probably submitted a couple of months ago, and they're going to look at that first and foremost. If your predicted grade is lower than what you think you could have got at the end, then you need to have a conversation with your teachers and send in some supporting documentation to the IB folks, okay, to the IB board, so that they can then look at how they should adjust your grade. So if that's the case for you, then that's what you need to do. If your predicted grade is one that you're happy with, then you're fine. But if it's one you're not happy with and you think you would have done better, then you need to be communicating with your teachers and get them to send documentation to the IB board, so the IB board reconsiders the predicted grade.
Okay. Question coming in from Zayan around standardized tests, so SATs and IELTS. If we are a junior in high school, should we still take these? And if so, when should we do so?
So if you're a junior in high school, it's always a good idea to take them in advance, because then if you need to improve your grade, you have a second chance. So see when you can get a date, actually, because the challenge right now is getting dates, because they've canceled so many, and you know, there's just so many challenges around that. So sign up, see when you can get a date, and then work towards preparing that. If you're a junior in high school right now, try to get a date for sometime this summer, and then you can have a couple of months to prepare, and then you can write it in the summer. If you need to write it again, you can write it again in the fall. So you'll actually be set. So that would be what we would recommend.
So again, a follow-up question from Zayan on that. Are we expecting some sort of a flexibility in terms of minimum score and in terms of not being able to complete their standardized tests in time for the applications?
That's a really good question. So we kind of alluded to that a little bit in the presentation. Universities are saying they're going to be flexible. How flexible is up in the air. We don't quite know yet. So I would suggest that you write to the universities and find out what they're saying, because it's going to be case by case. So for example, if the student is an A student and then their SAT score is not so good, that's probably going to be okay. But if the student is a B student and then the SAT score is not so good, that may not be acceptable to the university. So you have to check with universities how flexible they're going to be in terms of you know, scores and minimum scores, as well as whether they'll let students come in without writing the SAT and the IELTS if it's not available to you. So this is a question you have to specifically direct to universities that you're applying to or that you have applied to already.
Okay. Similar questions coming in from Aisha Sheikh and Iraj Zulfikar. I'm still waiting for universities to send in their acceptance letters. I have received from one. Should I go ahead with that, or should I wait out because of the situation?
So just to clarify, what do they tell us what countries they've applied to?
So Aisha Sheikh has received from Canada. I'm still waiting for a few more universities in Canada.
And from Canada. So Canada is a little slower than the US, and and also what's happened in the last couple of weeks in Canada is they've all transitioned to online. So they've also been caught up with that. The whole universities across the board have had to transition to online. So they've been caught up with that. So what they're saying is that give them a little bit of extra time. If the university, the first university that you got acceptance from, has this very tight deadline for you to respond, then I would ask them for an extension. Don't go ahead and respond, because this is an opportunity to also ask for information and more questions. So respond to that first university if the deadline is tight for confirming, and just say, can you give me an extension on when I need to confirm? Because I'm trying to figure out some stuff at my end. If they say yes, then you have a little bit more time for the other universities to let you know what's happening. If they say no and it's a university you're happy to go to, then of course, then you might want to go ahead and accept.
Okay. Iman Hussain from UAE, do you expect us to be able to attend university in the fall?
Yes, inshallah, very much so. All the universities are planning for that. So those of you who are seniors in high school right now, inshallah, you will all be attending university in the fall, as per your original plans. The question is whether you'll be attending university live, or whether for the first semester at least it might be online. That is to be determined. But yes, inshallah, you will all be able to attend university in the fall.
Again from Iman, irrespective of university applications and how that cycle works, what else can senior students do while they wait for the fall semester to start?
So this is a great question, actually, Iman, and it really is dependent on you. If you are not so busy right now with schoolwork, because I would urge you to make that your priority always. Stay focused on your schoolwork, completing your assignments, because your teachers will still grade you, and that grade that you get at the end of this academic year will still be seen by the university. So first and foremost, focus on staying on top of your actual schoolwork, staying on track for studying for any exams, completing all your assignments, et cetera, et cetera. If you have additional time, then take the opportunity to explore other interests. Make sure that you're obviously staying physically fit and focused, because you want to be up and ready for when university starts in the fall. Look at ways to support your family, maybe your parents or your younger siblings, if they're also doing online learning or working from home. Find ways to support that situation, because it is hard to always be home altogether. And then also look at other areas that you're interested in. If there's a particular hobby you want to explore, of course, take the opportunity now. And lastly, if there's particular courses that you're looking at studying in the fall when you get to university, take time now to do some pre-study work. Look at those courses, look at those areas, look at those topics, do some background research. It'll only help you once you start university in the fall. So there's many things you can do depending on what your interests are. But first and foremost, make sure you're staying on top of your current schoolwork.
So some more follow-up questions coming for that answer. One from Shifa. Should we still study with the intention that we might have to write our O-levels exams in the future?
Potentially, yes, because they may come back and say that there's some levels of tests, even if they don't call them exams, or the university that you're applying to might require you to write a test that might be subject focused or might be more generic. So for now, I would say, again, you need to stay on track with your schoolwork. Make sure you're studying what you need to be studying so that if the situation changes, if there's a requirement, you're not caught off guard. You don't want to be caught off guard. You want to be caught ready.
Another question coming in from Heather. As juniors, what can we do? So seniors, we've got the answer. As juniors, what can we do?
So as juniors, it's kind of the same, right? Because this year is a super important year in terms of your grades. Grade 11 is a really critical year because when you apply to university, which you'll inshallah do in the fall or early spring, they'll look at your grade 11, they'll look at your junior year grades, right? So you need to make sure that these grades are good. So you need to stay focused on school. You can't, let us being online or virtual be an excuse to not be doing your work or getting your assignments done or working to the best of your ability. So I definitely do that. And then, in reference to an earlier question, if you can write standardized tests this summer, then do that. That's a great way to get ahead of the game also. Prepare now, write the test this summer, and then if you need to retake them, you still have the opportunity in the fall. And again, see what you can do to support your families and your siblings, if you have siblings, with their schoolwork. If you're the eldest, then you can always help the younger. And then explore other subject areas that might be of interest to you. Also get a head up on things you might have to plan for in senior year. If you're finding that you have more time on your hands, like preparing your CV for your application, looking at the research in terms of what universities you might want to apply to in the fall and getting that list ready, preparing how you're going to put together your application, who you're going to ask to for references. So you can even start thinking about the applications for the universities this year, because it's already the spring and you're going to be putting everything together for the fall. So, you can also get ahead in terms of applications, but first and foremost, schoolwork. Second, support your family, support your siblings if you have younger siblings with their schoolwork, and then also plan for your standardized tests, and then look at how you can, start putting together your university applications.
Question coming in from Ali Masani. If the world situations becomes worse, do we look for universities in the UAE? So I think he means locally.
Right, so that's always an option, Ali, if that's something that's of interest to you. There are more options in the UAE specifically in terms of universities, so that is certainly something you can look at. And I would say that's a good backup plan if you're planning to go overseas anyway. If that was your first plan, was to go overseas, and now you're reconsidering it because of the global context, then definitely have a backup and start looking at UAE universities as well, and narrow it down to say 3 or 4 here. But continue to look at the overseas options as well, because we're very hopeful that things will normalize within the next few months.
A question coming in on scholarships. How does this situation affect scholarships and your?
Great question. So the thing with scholarships is it's really up in the air right now. If you're planning to apply for scholarships, you must still go ahead and apply. Go ahead and look at the requirements online, because usually scholarship applications are due February, March, April, May. And they might have delayed the timeline slightly given the situation. So you might actually have a little bit more time. But if you're planning to apply or have already applied, just continue to do the regular follow-up with them. If you've already applied, then make sure you're doing the follow-up, saying you're interested, asking if they need more information, staying in touch again with the scholarships team so they know that you're still committed to coming to that university. If you're planning to apply for scholarships, go ahead and do it. Make sure that you're giving them as much information. If there's information you can't give them because you just don't have it, like final grades or financial documents, then just say that, you understand that you don't have that information, but you're working to get it and you'll provide it as soon as possible, but you still wanted to submit your application because you want them to know that you're interested. And then let them respond back to you saying, this, that, or the other. If you run into any challenges, please send us the question and we'll see what we can do to help you figure out the responses to those questions.
Questions coming in around schools as well. If the board exams are not happening, will online school continue for us or will it be stopped earlier?
So for now in the UAE, the plan that we've heard from the government, and we've also heard this directly from the Ministry of Education, is that they're going to continue online schooling for the rest of this academic year. So that's June for most people. And then they're hopeful that in the fall, it'll be back to normal. In terms of final grades for this year, they're going to be using assignments that the students are now working on. So whatever has been submitted up to now, plus all of the work that will be done between now and the end of the school semester, end of the school year, is what will be used to decide the students' final grade and, having them continue on to the next level. So for now, that is what we're hearing. If we hear anything different, we will certainly let you know.
Questions that are coming in from the AKEB team members. So all of the status reports that we saw in your slides, is this applicable only for undergraduates or also true for graduate programs?
So we mentioned that the graduate school programs, they're being a little bit more flexible because they understand that many of the tests have been changed, but the graduate school tests like the GMAT, GRE, they're also being more flexible and giving you online options. So in a way, that's not going to be an excuse. There are still online options available, so grad students need to make sure they take advantage of that and do the test online from home, which is what they're offering. In terms of grad schools, they are allowing a little bit more flexibility in terms of the timelines, but they're not really changing their requirements because their perspective is that this is stuff you've already done. It's not stuff you're having to do right now. It's not something you're just completing and then applying to grad school. It's stuff that you should already have. So there's no excuse for that. For the standardized test, if you need a little bit more time, you need to let the university know that you haven't been able to get a date or whatever the situation is, and then see what they come back to you with. But otherwise, they're pretty much proceeding as normal, allowing for some flexibility with the deadline dates, but not the admissions requirements, because from their perspective, these are things that you should already have.
Right. So for IELTS, in Dubai, IELTS website is still allowing you to register for test dates. Is it worth applying now or waiting after to register?
So if you need to take the IELTS sooner than later, then I would certainly apply now and see what date they actually give you, because while you can apply, they're not giving you immediate dates, right? So you want to apply as soon as possible to get a date as soon as possible, and then let your universities that you're applying to know that this is the date that you've gotten. So don't wait to apply. And make sure you inform your universities once IELTS gives you a date, because the date they'll give you, unless they're giving you the online option, which currently is a little bit up in the air, may not be for another month or so. So don't wait to apply.
Duolingo English test, which is accepted in over 500 institutions, primarily in the US, would you recommend that as an option for some students?
So if the university that you're applying to accepts that, you need to make sure you get confirmation in writing from them that they will accept that, because what we've seen is that they say they'll accept it, but then when you submit the score, they say no. So you need to make sure you get confirmation from them via email in writing saying that yes, we will accept this score in lieu of, in replacement of the IELTS or the TOEFL. Only then would I go ahead and write it. Otherwise, it's kind of a pointless exercise. So unless you have confirmation, it's kind of a waste of your time.
So I have two more questions with me that are pending. If you have any more questions that are not answered, please message on the chat. One from Zayan, which is specific. He's sitting for the SAT 1 exam in August. When do you think he should go for the SAT 2?
So is he a senior or junior?
He's a junior.
Yeah. So so if he's doing SAT 1 in
August,
So then hopefully he'll get his score for SAT 1 by September. So he should write it in end of September, early October, if possible. If possible.
One question, that's a very good question, I think, from Ahil Juma. Post this pandemic situation, what should be one's approach to choosing a career?
Wow, that's a huge question. And how about we table that, and we actually will maybe do a webinar on thinking about career planning for the future, given the new world order that we're in. But it's a great question. And I'd have to talk to you a little bit more specifically to give you a better answer. But I think what you want to look at is what is going to be needed when we think about the world 30 years from now, okay? When you're thinking about your career planning, guys, all of you, you're not planning for a career that's around today, or that even is going to be around in 10 years. You need to be planning for a career that's going to be around in 30 years. So when you think about the future of the world, you need to look out and see what's happening, what's the research out there, what are the new trends today, and therefore what will those trends translate into in 30 years? That's what you need to be planning for. So I don't have a quick answer for you, but I want you to, if you want to think about career planning for the future, it should be long-term, big picture, where is the world going to be in 30, 40, 50 years? And therefore, if I'm going to pick a career, what will be useful in 30, 40, 50 years? And understand something else, guys. You might have different jobs along the way, but you'll probably stay in the same field. Like I work in education, but I have done many things in my life to get to this point, but I've always worked in education. That's my thing, but I've done different types of work and had different kinds of jobs and different kinds of interests along the way of my career. But knowing your track is probably more important than knowing your job. So understanding your career track is probably a good way to plan, as opposed to thinking about a job specifically. And we can definitely have a webinar around that and talk about that a little bit more, maybe in the next time or the time after. Great question.
So last question coming in from Ali Mohammed. Considering some schools haven't set predicted grades, what would universities consider? And is that a university decision or a school decision?
So it's actually a combination of both, right? Because you need to check what your school is doing and how they're going to decide final grades. Because again, every school is figuring it out their own way. So you need to check with your school what they're doing to decide on the final grade. And then you need to check with the university and say, this is what my school is doing to decide on the final grade. What will you accept this? If you won't accept this, what would you need from my school in order for you to understand what my grade is? And then you need to go back and work with your school to make sure that they give the university what they're looking for. So it's actually, you have to look at it from both angles, but you have to take a lead and in the communication and chat with your school as well as the university to make sure that you're getting the information from both sides and putting it together.
I think that's it from questions.
Great.
All right, thank you, Sahil, for the Q&A, and really thank you, Sajdafa, for your time and providing us great insight into the university application process given the current situation. And to the students, we really hope today's session has been very helpful. And as previously mentioned, we are planning on having similar sessions regularly. So do let us know what your questions are, and we will aim to source information, helpful information as it is made available to us. Also, please note today's presentation will be updated onto the .ismaili website and will be updated on an ongoing basis as well. So do remember to send in your questions to the Aga Khan Education Board for the UAE at educationclinic.gcc@gmail.com, so we can develop future webinars and update the presentation. See you guys soon for the next webinars. Thank you so much and have a nice evening.